I'd like to share a story with you that I learned from a fellow librarian at the Free Library of Philadelphia many years ago, and then later found in Richard Chase's grandfather's tales. It's an old American folk tale from the Appalachian Mountains, and it is called Sodi Saleratus. I like to tell this story with children because it's easy to follow. It's a very linear tale with a lot of repetition. It's a great way to get the audience involved, having them guess what's going to happen next, having them chime in with parts of the tale that are repeated over and over. They get to sing a silly little song that's in the story. All these ways of incorporating their engagement into the telling of the tale. And of course, that's always a wonderful thing, especially with children. Um, so it'll be interesting to see as the discussions on the forum have been talking about how far from the original my telling has gotten, as I did memorize it, quote unquote, at first, but since then have kept adding and changing it as time has gone on. So, enough of an introduction. Here is Sodi Saleratus. Down the dusty road, over the bridge, next to the woods, was a cabin where an old woman, an old man, a little boy, a little girl, and a squirrel lived. One day the old woman decided to make biscuits, and as she got all of her ingredients together to make the mix, she noticed she didn't have any Sodi Saleratus. So she called the little boy over. Little boy, go down to the general store and bring me back a box of Sodi Saleratus. Tell the storekeep that I will pay him on Friday. Okay, Grandma, said the little boy, and off he hopped and jumped down the dusty road, singing to himself, Sodi, Sodi, Sodi Saleratus, Sodi, Sodi, Sodi Saleratus, all the way down the road, over the bridge, and into the general store, where he said, Howdy, Mr. Shopkeep. My grandma has sent me to pick up a box of Sodi Saleratus. She said she'd pay you on Friday. So the shopkeep gave the boy the box. The boy said, Thank you, sir, and he headed back out of the store. He went over the bridge and started up the dusty road, when out from behind a bush came a big brown bear who reared up on his hind legs and roared, Little boy, I'm going to eat you up. And with that he swallowed the boy and the box whole. Back at the house, the old woman waited and waited, and when she realized the little boy was not coming back, she called to the little girl. Little girl, go find your brother. I sent him to the general store, and he has not come back yet. Hurry him along with that box of Sodi Saleratus that I need. Okay, Grandma, said the little girl, and off she went out of the house, skipping and hopping down the dusty road, singing, Sodi, Sodi, Sodi Saleratus, Sodi, Sodi, Sodi Saleratus, all the way down the road, over the bridge, and into the general store, where she said, Howdy, Mr. Shopkeep. Did my brother come in here asking for a box of Sodi Saleratus? Why, he sure did, and I gave him that box, and he left here about half an hour ago. Thank you, sir, said the little girl, and she went out of the store, back over the bridge to head home, when out from behind the bush came that big brown bear who reared up on his hind legs and roared. I ate a little boy and his box of Sodi Saleratus, and now I'm going to eat you too. And with that, he swallowed the little girl whole. Back at the house, the little old woman waited and waited, getting more and more frustrated. Finally, she called her husband. Old man, will you go down to the store and find those grandchildren and hurry them on home with my box of sody saleratus?" "All right, woman, I'll go." And off he went, stomping and grumping down the dusty road, grumbling to himself, "Sody, sody, sody saleratus, sody, sody, sody saleratus." Down the road, over the bridge, and into the general store, where he said, "Howdy, Mr. Shopkeep. Did my grandkids come in here, a little boy asking for a box of sody saleratus, and a little girl come to fetch him?" "Why, they sure did," said the shopkeep. "They left here about half an hour ago." "Thank you, sir." And the grandpa went back out of the store, back over the bridge to head home, when out from behind the bush, you guessed it, came the big brown bear, who reared up on his hind legs and said, "I ate a little boy and his box of sody saleratus. I ate a little girl, and now I'm going to eat you too." And with that, he swallowed the old man whole. Back at the house, who's left? Right, the old woman. And when she realized that even her husband, let alone the grandchildren, had not come back, she said to herself, "Well, you can't get anything done right unless you do it yourself." And off she stomped out of the house, down the dusty road, grumbling to herself, "Sody, sody, sody saleratus, sody, sody, sody saleratus," over the bridge and into the general store, where she said, "Howdy, Mr. Shopkeep. Did my husband and my grandchildren come through here, a little boy asking for a box of sody saleratus, his sister, and my husband?" "Why, they sure did," said the shopkeep. "They've all been through here, and they've all left." "Thank you, sir." And she went out of the store and back over the bridge, when out from behind the bush came... That's right, the big brown bear, who reared up on his hind legs and roared. What did he roar? "I ate a little boy and his box of sody saleratus. I ate a little girl. I ate an old man, and I'm going to eat you too." And with that, he swallowed the old woman whole. Back at the house, is there anybody left? Yes, don't forget, the squirrel was there, and he looked around the kitchen, saw nobody there, and knew what he had to do. And he scurried out of the house, scurried down the road, saying to himself, "Chip, chip, 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 chip," over the bridge and into the general store, where he hopped up on the counter and said to the shopkeep, "Chip, chip, 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 chip." Luckily, the shopkeep could speak a little squirrel, and he said, "Why, they've all been through here, and they've all left." "Chip, chip, 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 chip." And the squirrel hopped down off the counter, went out of the store, went over the bridge, when out from behind the bush came that big brown bear. He roared up on his hind legs and said, "I ate a little boy and his box of sody saleratus. I ate a little girl. I ate an old man, and I ate an old woman too, and now I'm going to eat you." But before the bear could swallow the squirrel down, the squirrel tore off up the road as fast as his little legs could carry him. The bear chased after the squirrel, saying, "If you can do that with your little tiny legs, I can certainly do it with my great big ones." And he chased that squirrel, getting closer and closer until the squirrel ran up the trunk of a tree. The bear saying, "If you can go up that tree in your little tiny legs, well, I can certainly do it with my great big ones." And up he scampered up the tree behind the squirrel. The squirrel went out on a branch, and the bear was right behind her, saying, "If you can do that with your little tiny legs, I can do it with my great big ones." And then the squirrel leaped from the branch to a neighboring tree, grabbed the branch there to get away, and the bear also leaped from the branch, but being so much heavier, so much bigger than the squirrel, he couldn't make it, and down he fell splat on the ground, where he split wide open, and out stepped the little girl, the little boy, the old man, and the old woman, and the box of sody saleratus. They all went home. Grandma put 2 tablespoons of sody saleratus into her mix and whipped up the most delicious, fluffiest, tastiest biscuits this side of the mountains. She gave 1 to the little boy, 1 to the little girl, 2 to the old man, but to the squirrel she gave 4. And that's the end of sody saleratus.